Welcome to the 5th Annual Interdisciplinary Research Conference. Kicking off our first presentation will be Dr. Jim Laub speaking on Measure What You Value, a review of servant leadership research using the Organizational Leadership Assessment.
Come on over here. If you're going to be a part, I'll be speaking this way. This may work out better. Good to have you here, and good to be a part of this this session. Let me hand out a model, and I just set that down. That we're going to be reviewing, and then the research based upon that model. I've always been interested in what makes organizations work or not work, and we've all been a part of organizations, we won't name them here today, that don't always work and are sort of unhealthy instead of healthy. And so one of the key issues is, how do we measure what we truly value as an organization, the type of organization we want to be, and does it make a difference? And what can research tell us about what's going on in organizations that start to measure what they value? The research started here back in 1998 in my dissertation work, seeking to put together an operational definition of servant leadership. So with that definition, to help define what makes an organization healthy. This is the definition that came out of that. Servant leadership is placing the good of those led over the self-interest of the leader. Well, what explains that? What develops that? And this is the model that you're taking a look at here. We developed this by first doing a Delphi study, identifying 25 experts in the field of servant leadership. They taught at the university level, published on the topic, or were key practitioners. And they helped through a Delphi research process to identify 60 key items that identify what servant leadership is all about. That was clustered then into this model. And so the first thing we see about servant leadership or healthy organizations is that the leaders value people, and people in the organization value each other. You can think about it yourself. Do you feel valued in your organization? Here's the 3 descriptors. We serve others first. You feel valued if someone serves your needs over their own needs. Trusting in people, believing in them, and listening receptively. Those are key descriptors of what it means to help someone to feel valued. And if you feel valued, that's a healthy place. To the level that you feel devalued, we'll explain what happens when that happens, but the organization becomes unhealthy. Let's unfold the model even further. Not only do you feel valued in a healthy organization, but you feel developed. You feel that this is a place where you're not just as good as your last performance. You're there to be built towards your best potential. The descriptors for those are providing for learning, modeling behavior, and encouraging and affirming other people. Think about the times in your organization where you felt encouraged. Someone's built you up to a word, affirmation, and you have felt that. How often does it happen in our organizations? Not quite enough. But in servant organizations, people feel developed. They feel built up and built up to their potential. Here's a third one. Healthy organizations build community, a sense of togetherness, a sense of belonging. 3 descriptors. Relationships are built, encouraged, not just isolated work, but relationships, collaborative work more than competitive work. There are organizations that operate on the principle that the low performers will just get sent out and the higher performers will get pushed up. But in healthy organizations, we seek to rise all of the boats, and we seek to work collaboratively and not competing one against the other. And then valuing of differences. We build community through valuing the differences of others, ethnic, racial differences, gender, and so forth. So those are 3 parts of servant leadership. One of the misconceptions of servant leadership is that it's not really leadership at all. It's just kind of being nice to each other and, kind of soft. But that's not it at all. Servant leaders do lead. They provide leadership by mobilizing others, taking action, and envisioning the future. So servant leaders do initiate, they do create vision, they do make hard decisions, they do sometimes do things that upset people, but they do it in a particular way, a way of valuing people, developing them, and building community at the same time that those hard decisions are being made. So But servant leaders don't just provide leadership, but they share leadership. And this is a unique aspect, I think, of servant leadership, that everyone is seen as a potential leader. Everyone has the opportunity to create vision, take action, mobilize people, and create change. So if that's the case, then this particular model allows for everyone to take a role of leadership, and that's respected and encouraged. Here's the 3 descriptors. Share status. Share power. Not just the top leaders have power, but everyone is empowered to make a difference in the organization, to create a difference. And share the vision. This is a little different than kind of the standard view of the top leader creates the vision, everyone else implements the vision. Here it is that we create vision throughout the organization, and we serve others by allowing them to take that role of leadership. Okay, one more key characteristic: display authenticity. This is a key to expecting and encouraging honesty and integrity throughout the organization. Openness, transparency, all of those words that connect with authenticity. Honesty and integrity, a willingness to learn, certainly from those above you in the organization, but also those below you, so to speak, all the way around you. And then open and accountable, that leaders are accountable to everyone around them. And so this particular type of model helps to describe what's going on in a healthy organization. And so initially the research defined the model, created a definition of servant leadership, and then asked the question is, does this type of leadership make an organization healthy? Does it make it successful? We know as Christians that the Scripture talks about leading as a servant. Matthew 20, Philippians 2, John 13, a lot of passages talk about that. What is that talking about? Can a servant leader be successful in business and nonprofits and health organizations and so forth? And I think the research starts to bear that out, because over the past 15 to 17 years, we have been measuring organizations using the servant leadership, the OLA, Organizational Leadership Assessment. And currently, we have 30,000 records in our database. So 30,000 people have taken the OLA and responded, and so we've collected some of that, and also in particular studies like right now it's about 47 dissertations have been completed using the OLA instrument, and they've assessed multiple things, different viewpoints. We've had probably 5 or 6 studies are happening right now. But let me give you a summary and then what we've done with that research. Research on the healthy organization that has this model, and the OLA is the measurement tool for that, finds that as the OLA score goes up, so goes up job satisfaction. And job satisfaction has a lot of connections with productivity and performance in an organization. So that's a pretty good indicator, and this has been done probably in 12 to 15 different studies. Healthcare, business, all different types of organization, religious organizations. So it transcends organizations, because sometimes people will make the assumption, well, yes, servant leadership, that works in the soft organizations, education and community organizations, the people-oriented organizations, but you can't make it work in profit organizations. But that's not the case. We found that these results occur across all different types of organizations, nonprofit, for-profit, government, so forth. So higher job satisfaction, in fact, it's a significantly higher level of performance and job satisfaction related to the OLA scores. Higher levels of trust in the organization and trust in the leaders. When the OLA score goes up, the trust score goes up. Lower levels, and this was a study done in a large set of manufacturing companies in the Midwest, lower levels of attrition and turnover. Very costly for an organization to see people turned over, have to retrain people, and so forth. So there's a lower level of attrition and turnover in organizations that have a high OLA score, servant leadership score. And then lower levels of also absenteeism, which is also a costly thing for organizations. People just tend to show up more at work. But doesn't that make sense? I mean, if you feel valued, if you feel developed, if you feel you can contribute to the organization, you're expected to lead, you're empowered to lead, wouldn't you want to show up? So that's kind of how that works. higher levels of team effectiveness. Studies done with looking at team effectiveness surveys and the OLA score. The higher the OLA score, the higher the perception of participants in teams, that teams are more effective. And this is an interesting one, a little different, but a study done in Broward County with public schools showed higher levels of student achievement on standardized tests. So with organizations, obviously these were schools, education, as the OLA score was higher, the higher the scores of the kids. That's interesting because kids are the customers, so to speak. They're not the employees. But doesn't it make sense that if your employees perceive a more healthy organization that they're a part of, that they transfer that positive sense to the customers, to the kids in this case, and the kids performed at higher levels of student achievement. So this is some of the research that starts to help us understand that servant leadership isn't just a nice idea, and the Bible says we should be that, so we assume that we are, and it really works. It really works to produce a healthier, more productive organization with positive outcomes. So what have we done with this particular information is we've identified levels of organizational health. So that initial model that we had indicates those 6 areas: values people, develops people, builds community, and so forth. If those things are high, we're going to see it in the highest level of the organizations. If those areas are low, we're going to see them absent. So let's explore that just a little bit. If the healthy characteristics are absent, you have a poor or toxic health organization. You may have served in one. A lot of people have, because it's a kind of a dangerous place to be, dangerous place for your own job, your own sense of self-worth, and we're going to explore that just a little bit. The next level up is limited health. Next level up is moderate to good. These are specific score breaks in the OLA that will identify an organization within one of these health levels. And the highest is 5 and 6, excellent organizational health. So you might have noticed that our image has shifted a little bit. So we're going to explore that as we go through these different organizational types. First one is toxic. Do you love this picture? This is the leader leading, actually kind of leading, directing, and fear. Let's explore what toxic leadership is all about. You see the leaders there, top, big image. You have your middle managers, and you have your workforce. That's a basic organization. Top leaders, management, workforce. Okay, so this is an autocratic, high-fear organization. That's what that image showed. People operate in fear. When fear is high, trust is low, risk-taking is low, low creativity, poor communication. Those are the scriptures that occur when an organization is 1 or 2, and yes, organizations score in that way. We've seen about 30% of organizations score in a toxic to poor health area. And we actually scored one. It was a university back a number of years ago. That university shut down after that time. They clearly were not functioning effectively, and this showed that, but they weren't aware of it all at that time. So here's the actual one of the pages of the OLA report for this toxic organization. The red bar is the top leaders. So I'll explain it to you a little bit. Your health levels along the top, 1 to 6, low to high, and these are your 6 areas of the model: values people, develops people, and so forth. Red bar is top leader response on average. Green bar is the management response on average. Blue bar is the worker response. So, anything we could learn possibly from this particular image? Okay, we got some issues here with workers clearly in the poor health. What's interesting, though, and we find this in a lot of organizations, is the top leaders are way up in the 4 and 5 and sometimes in the 6. What's going on? Yeah, the managers aren't quite up there. They're a little bit more aware of what's going on in the organization. But this level of cluelessness of top leaders is critical in organizations, because if they don't understand how their workers are experiencing the organization, they can't do anything to fix it. In fact, I'm dealing with an organization right now, and the head lady told me, he says, we're doing well. People talk to me. I have good relationship with my folks. I know what's going on. and we just shared the report. It looked a lot like this. And she didn't have a lot to say. Was very kind of unhappy. I think right now she wants to shoot the messenger, but we'll see where it goes from here. But this is a real organization, a real result of people taking the OLA and say, this is what's happening in my organization. Now let's bump it up to the next level, negative parent. Okay? Not toxic, not poor, but we're moving it up. We still have the leader as the focus, but it's a negative, critical type of parenting leadership. Negative reinforcement is used mostly, punishment, fear motivation, and avoidance. And so a negative atmosphere, kind of a negative parenting, you'll never amount to anything, talking down, patronizing attitude that often leaders have with their workers. And it comes and is shown in this one. And here, actually kind of displayed through the parent-adult-child model, where the leader has the parent role and the workers take the child role. They could talk a little bit more about that, but we'll go through this a little quicker. Here's an actual report on an org 3. They're at right here with the blue bar, kind of up towards the top of the 3, but still functioning in a negative paternalistic viewpoint. Still unhealthy, still levels of fear, still negative reinforcement. Let's bump this up again. What if we can improve the health of this organization? And we go to the positive parent leadership. A lot of people think this is the healthiest you can get. They think this is servant leadership. And I'm going to suggest that it's not. It's a level before. It's still somewhat positive, but not all the way there. In fact, let me explain why it's not. Take a look at that picture. It's a picture that's kind of nice and nurturing and caring, right? We like that. The leaders take care of the followers. Problem with that is the followers stay children, and the leaders stay the nurturing parent. And we want to move beyond that. So here's the positive organization, positive paternalistic. It's nurturing. It's positive reinforcement, more rewards than it is negative reinforcement. Fear mixed with respect. Hey, we like the leader. He's pretty good. She's pretty good. But it's very much a dependency model. Stay the child. We're the leaders. We make the decisions. We're at the top. You're not. And let's everyone have their role and their place. And that, again, supports this parent-child model. The leader's the parent, and the workers are the children. Here's a image from that operating here. Now, one of the things you see is the health improves, the perception match between top leaders and the workers improve as well. Well, let's take it all the way to the positive. Here's the 3 images. Love the toxic there, yep. Negative parent and then positive parent. So we said that this is what people often think is the healthy one. Leaders take care of their people. But here's the servant-partner leadership model. And again, research has kind of identified that we have about 13% of the organizations in this one, about 30% in the autocratic, the poor health, toxic, and then in that mid-range of negative to positive paternalistic, about 57%. That's where most organizations operate and live. And so that's creating a huge limitation on productivity and satisfaction within our organizations. But this is the organization where these 6 areas of the model that you're looking at in the handout, exist. People perceive that they're valued. People perceived that they're being developed, that they're a part of a community, that they're provided leadership. People want leadership. They want direction. But they also want to share leadership. They want to be able to make decisions. They also want a place that's authentic, real, transparent, and has integrity. Okay? So just one comment about this. The parent-child thing's got to be broken, and we have to move to a different relationship between leaders and followers, and that's the adult-to-adult relationship. When a leader says, I'm confident enough in my leadership to have my authority and what I need to do, but I'm also confident enough to share leadership with you, we're both adults, so let's talk that way. Adults talk with mutual respect. Adults talk, sharing what they truly want and need. And here's an example. Again, all these are real organizations of how workers perceive that they're in a positive place. And these are the 6 areas of servant leadership that when we measure them, identified that if organizations and leaders display these characteristics, trust increases. We see teams become more effective. We see participants, even students, become more successful at what they do. And we're going to continue to develop this type of research. Right now we're working with a growing group of senior living facilities throughout the U.S. We got 15 that we've measured so far, and we're looking at the OLA score compared with performance factors that have been identified by that industry as being markers of success. And so it's going to be interesting because the first 15 that we've measured go everywhere from a 2, toxic, to a 5, which is servant. And you have 4s and 3s in there too. So which is good, because once they take this, and we have a group of students at Houghton that are actually going to crunch the data, and they're going to be able to look at that and then consider whether these performance factors move with the OLA score. If so, we have more research that supports that. So I think we'll stop there. We have a little case study that just shows that, you know, organizations can change, they can shift, they can improve their performance by giving attention to increasing these 6 areas. So I'll stop with that and see if there's any questions that you might have related to this information.
How long is the survey or whatever that people fill out?
Practical question. It's 66 items, takes about 15 minutes to complete. The 60 items are related to these 6 things. Then there's 6 additional for job satisfaction. And that's one way we've been able to measure it consistently. Yeah, so, and it's all taken online, you know, electronically delivered and all that. So very convenient to do. Easy for an organization to implement. Yes?
Is the survey anonymous, or do they say, like, what?
No, good question. Yeah, there's 2 ways to do surveys. We do a lot of surveys here at the university, so we know both ways. The more common way is you get a specific URL. The problem with the URL, the specific one, is that it can be tracked. We won't do that, of course, but it can be. Therefore, the fear is there, and I've heard the fear is there. What the OLA does is everyone in the organization gets the same username, password, org code, and PIN number. So that means there is absolutely no way to track your specific response to your specific response. Okay? We can track to know if you're a top leader, how many of those took it, or if we have subgroups, whether you participate in subgroups. So you can monitor it, but you can't track a specific response. So confidentiality is protected, anonymity very high. Good. Yes?
Have you gone back after organizations have done this survey, you've consulted with them, you've given them suggestions to implement, they've gone through that process, have you then gone back and then given them this again to see how the scores change?
Okay, I'm going to show you my quick case study then. Okay, can an organization change? This is a organization from here locally, West Palm Beach, and this is when they took it in February 2010, Org 3. What's that? Negative paternalistic, right? And these are the subgroups, and you see anywhere from a 5 to a 2. Oh, that just came up. Here's when we redid it, okay? So they moved from an Org 3 to an Org 4.
That's overall.
Overall. Now, within the subgroups, you can see the movement. Now, they stayed at 5. 3 to 6, that's dramatic. 2 to 5, this was a very small group, but still very dramatic. 3 to 4, 3 to 4, 3 to 2. This group went down. Now, this is after a lot of different interventions, meetings, some training, working with their leadership team. And just a comment on this, when this happened and you had a group go from negative paternalism to toxic or poor health, the bells should start ringing. Well, they did, but it wasn't paid attention to. The top leaders, there were issues, personality and other things, political things that ended up with them not dealing with this. And about 8 months later, everything blew apart right here. And it still actually has residual issues. So as answer your question, you see the change that can occur. I don't need all those. And wanted to show you, this is from this particular organization, net operating income. This is when the OLA was introduced, and this is result from that time. Obviously, there's a lot of other things happening, but the director put a lot of weight into the effect of the OLA. Here's net operating margin. And you have two of these, also pretty significant increase. And here's occupancy. So, the case study is kind of more of an example. It's not research as much as just a real-life example of organizations can change if they give attention. Now, when you have a negative paternalistic, a lot of times the leaders, the response we've seen is leaders will try to push the information away. Oh, we did the report, that's interesting. We had some bad people here before, they're not here anymore. All these reasons, right? And that's kind of the response, but this guy didn't do that. He said, okay, we have to accept that. What do we work on? We worked on that parent, adult, child thing and did some training and talked about the model. And I think because of that response, just very open and not being defensive as a leader, they saw the improvement. So, great question.
Do you find that you have more, because I did OLA with the department.
Yes.
Do you find that you have more departments or subgroups taking the OLA instrument as opposed to larger organizations?
Some, but mostly that happens here, but mostly it's the organizations and then subgroups within, because then you can see the variations, just like we would here, I'm sure. And we did here in this organization. Again, you saw in the same organization a group operating as an independent department, operating as a toxic organization, with a group operating in a 5. Now, the director of that 5, he has come back now to this organization after being gone to a similar sister organization. He's come back now to head up one of these centers that is scoring kind of low. So, but he knows it, he gets it, he understands these concepts. So we're working on these ideas as he's trying to get his group to move from a 3 to a 5. It's a tough though. It's a hard shift.
So these researchers are graduate students, or?
Yeah, the researchers that the one we're doing with senior living is a consultancy group. That works with them, and they know about the OLA. He was a doctoral student that I had, and they wanted to see if they could build a business case around the use of the OLA, servant leadership, and these concepts. If they can, then they go out and say, hey, wouldn't you like to improve these performance factors? We have shown that if you change your organizational culture, you're better apt to do that. The dissertations that produce the research we summarized there have been doctoral students. Almost all. 1 or 2 were master's students, but most of them are doctoral students from all over.
Great.
Different places.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.